ice is dropped in French today in Montreal. Welcome to Soccer Down here. I am in France, in French Canada, not France. I don't know where I am at this point. I'm tired trying to speak French and I can't do it. Welcome to Montreal. I'm Jason Longshore. Welcome to Atlanta, John Nelson. What's up?
Where the players play. Yes, that is accurate, sir.
Wow, that was amazing. That was the whitest I've ever heard.
Thought you'd enjoy that.
Yeah, something like that. That's about kind of how the game felt yesterday. Atlanta and Montreal 1-1 draw at Stade Saputo. There's positives to take. There's negatives to take. It's better than the match at Yankee Stadium, obviously, but is it good enough? Don't know about that. We'll have to get into that this afternoon. Let us know what you're thinking on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Let us know where your head's at after this draw, because after the match on our full-time report on 92.9 The Game, the reactions were all over the place. And that's kind of how the game felt. I mean, I think that's completely fair. There were some good performances. There were some, I think, questionable performances. There were things that you're going to take out of it and feel better about the upcoming playoffs. And there's things that you're going to take out of it and have concerns. I think a lot of teams around MLS are having those conversations today, though. If you kept up with scoreboard around the not quite decision day, but pretty much decision day, it was chaotic, especially out in the West. And we'll get into all of that as we go this morning as well and set the table for the playoffs. In the East, we know which 7 teams are involved now. That is decided. We don't know where 2 through 7 finish. There's lots of different options for how the first round of the playoffs will match up. But let's start with the highlights from Stade Saputo yesterday. It was first half that was, I think, conservative is probably the way I would go with it, John. I felt like Atlanta was very focused on staying organized, making sure that the structure was correct, and slowed the pace down a little bit to make sure of that. I think Montreal also was very respectful of Atlanta's attack. They didn't want to get caught, and they were kind of trying to keep their organization as well. And it felt like both teams were growing into the game, testing the other one out, and neither one really wanted to risk much in the first half.
Yeah, I could go there. For me, it was just you saw teams trying to figure the real estate out, figure their approach out, figure out, okay, this is working. Okay, these relationships are happening right now. There wasn't a whole lot of risk that was taken in the first 45. You had 2 teams that were trying to sit there and gauge what the other was thinking. I mean, it was, if you want to call it a staring contest, I think it was a moving staring contest at points. But that first 45, it was methodical, I guess is the best way to phrase it for me, is you're looking at the lineup changes for Atlanta United. How is everyone going to interact? And how are we going to look at things? And I think it was, if you want to call it just figuring things out for that first 45, I think that's what we saw.
Yeah, it's kind of what it felt like. I mean, I think Atlanta was slightly the better team, not by a ton, but slightly. Brandon Vasquez had a nice chance with a long-range shot that you don't normally think of Vasquez with. Montreal had some chances as well. It felt like Atlanta was edging into the ascendancy, but not really grabbing it with both hands. They did grab the lead with both hands. If I can get the highlight to play up, actually, and I have the wrong highlight up. It's one of those mornings, y'all. Bear with me. I'm apologetic because we're trying to get this sorted out with a different setup than usual, as you can hear. So, second half, Atlanta came out better. I think second half, Atlanta came out with a little more initiative. And second half, Atlanta found the lead through Julian Gressel. John, I believe you were watching at the Marley House in Decatur. Is that correct?
That is accurate, sir. Yes.
And I believe that there was quite the reaction.
Yes, and the reaction was fairly similar on multiple points in the second half. It was almost a cathartic release because of the anticipation of what everyone was seeing, the build up and the chances and all of those opportunities. And then you finally get that cathartic release when something happens and gets in the back of the net.
It sounded kind of like a cathartic release on 92.9 The Game. Here's what it sounded like.
Nagbe will pivot around Piatti. Pass to the right, Lorenowitz. Lorenowitz down the right wing to Gressel, 40 yards from goal. Back inside Lorenowitz. Go forward, Jeff. Jeff goes around Piatti. Ahead now to Pitti in the right attacking third. In the middle to Gressel, top of the 18. Played through to Hyman. Back heel, Gressel walks it. Shot! Score! WrestleMania's running wild on you, brother, and Atlanta United has broken through in the 53rd minute.
The people in front of our radio booth did not know about WrestleMania, first off. There were lots of people turning around looking at us like, what is going on over there? Great goal. I mean, the Gressel and Pitti combination first, and then the Gressel and Hyman combination second. I mean, Julian just keeps the run going. And look, first half, you saw it. I'm not sure how much they showed on the TV broadcast, but Gressel had a challenge fairly early in the first half, I think within the first 20 minutes, where he came up injured, up hobbling, and was hobbling for quite a while, to the point that Escobar, Barco, and Villalba were all warming up midway through the first half. I didn't think he was going to be able to continue. I mean, you go back to the San Jose game, he had a tackle that they checked the knee, he finished that out, he didn't play at Yankee Stadium. They didn't say specifically if the leg was part of that, but you'd have to assume that it factored in. And then this happened early on. I mean, thought he was going to be subbed. Did not see him finishing that game out, and did not see him getting forward to score a goal, because it felt like after that knock that he was very hesitant to push forward, and he was playing the ball backwards mostly. Some of that by design tactically to keep organized, but also other times I felt like he just wasn't feeling up to it, just wasn't feeling himself. So for him to get the opening goal, it's a lot of guts out of Julian Gressel yesterday.
No doubt. And you could tell at points he was laboring. You could tell that he was trying to manage what was going on. You could tell that he was pushing through at certain moments. And you could tell, especially in that goal that came on the board, that he was pushing through and he was trying to get through that wall that was there. And he did. And it was gorgeous build up. And then the flick by Hyman that kind of sprung things inside the area to put it in the back of the net. And you could almost see a sense of relief from Julian as well. It's like, okay, let's, something has happened, and we're on the plus side of things.
Lots of changes after that for both teams. Ezequiel Barco comes into the match. Atlanta plays with the two forwards in Barco and Pitti for a while. Then Tito Villalba comes into the match for Pitti, and it becomes a little more traditional with Tito as the forward, Barco dropping off of him. Montreal really went for it. They brought on Orji Okonkwo, I think a very dangerous player who's just broken into the Nigerian U23 squad. He had a huge hand in Montreal's equalizer that was converted by Boyan.
Loose play here in the middle third. Piani's on. Swings it over to Sanya, 45 yards from goal. Volleys it around Miram. Ahead to Okonkwo. Dribbling on LGP and around LGP. Into the box. Okonkwo. Cross. Shot. Score. Boyan. And we're level at 1 here in the 81st minute.
Okonkwo, when he came on, worried me, John, because his speed out wide was something that Montreal started to look to exploit, and it's his speed that gets him around Leandro Gonzalez-Perez rather easily.
Yeah, and that was one of the first things that I noticed, is that, as they were working Okonkwo on, as we're looking at it on the TV side from the near side, working his way from left to right, you saw that speed, and when you can dial that kind of speed up late in a match, you can make things happen and create, and we saw you and I've seen Okonkwo in the past, and we've seen his ability, and it was on display there, working very, very quickly late in the match, taking advantage of the fatigue of others, and you saw the opportunity, and folks going to ground, trying to get things stopped defensively, and Boyan puts it in the back of the net.
He's an explosive player, Okonkwo, and he's one that I'll be curious to see what happens. Montreal have a number of players here on loan from Bologna. I don't know if he's a guy that gets into the Serie A squad. It might be really good for him to be a focal point here next year. But you're talking about a Montreal Impact club that just hired a new sporting director on Saturday. Wilmer Cabrera does not have a contract for next year. I think winning the Canadian Championship helps him, but I don't think it guarantees him anything because they've only won in the now 6 games he has managed in league play. They've won 1, they've drawn 1, they've lost 4. So is that plus the trophy gonna get him a job? I don't know. I think they're gonna look very different next year. We'll see if Okonkwo is part of it. Bojan will be. I thought he was good. Very savvy. I mean, obviously you know his pedigree from Barcelona and you know what he can do. He was compared to Lionel Messi at a young age, which is a lot to live up to, but there are a lot of similarities. I thought the roles that he was in yesterday were really interesting, and there's not a lot of players in the league who have the soccer IQ to be able to handle those sorts of things. Bojan was nominally a number 9 at the start, but dropping in as a bit of a false 9. Montreal's kind of playing somewhere between a 4-4-2 and a 4-3-3. It would typically get Lapalainen up high and make it look like a 4-3-3, although they were listed in a 4-4-2. They defend in a 4-4-2 and get forward in a 4-3-3, depending on which side they were attacking through. Lapalainen on the right side, Baya on the other side. And Atlanta handled that pretty well. As Montreal brought on Maxio Ruti, a true number 9, and Bojan dropped into the hole behind, then it was a little bit harder to pick him up. And on that goal, it's a situation where the cross comes in. It looks like everyone is accounted for except for Bojan, who's in that hole behind the front line. No one ran with him. He's able to just get a touch. It's not a beautiful goal, but it's a goal and it's an equalizer. Atlanta had tons of chances to put this game away. And I know there will be lots of talk about Pity Martinez's chip well before this that he did not put away. That play happened really quickly. It was a really interesting one, and people are going to question it because it wasn't converted. That's going to be an issue when you look at how this result finished out. But you also can't predict that you're going to get the situation with Leandro Gonzalez-Perez getting beat out wide.
No, and with Okonkwo, I mean, my knowledge base of Bojan comes from his time at Stoke, and it's past that time at Barca B in Barcelona and the cup of coffee that he had at Roma and such, and you know the kind of player that he was. And you mentioned Pity Martinez, and there were times yesterday where Pity was the differente that, when we've had Felipe Cardenas on the show in the past, you see that artistry at work. And I know that folks are going to be drawn toward the chip that didn't go in, but there were plenty of other opportunities where Pity was creating things for others in that match. I know that we're drawn to things that don't go correctly, but I think at the same time we need to look at what was going correctly, having that artist there and having those artistic moments that led to other opportunities for Atlanta United yesterday.
Yeah, I thought Pity had a good day on the whole. The chip is the one that, you get a chance to play that one again. You get a chance to slow down a little bit in the moment, and you have Ezequiel Barco racing up to try to help. You have other options, dribbling the goalkeeper, taking a shot, getting the goalkeeper leaning one way, playing Barco in. It's a tough one. It's one that if you convert that, game over, it's done. And it's all, and not just that, but the way you try to convert it. We know in this game that there are some goals that have more emotional punch than others. Scoring a goal is always going to affect the opposition, but if you convert that chip in that moment, they're done. They're not coming back. It's game over. It's it's such an audacious effort that it has a little bit more of an impact. Now, did the game need that at that point? You could argue that it didn't. You could argue it just needed the second goal and everything's fine. But Pity Martinez, as that differente, he's going to go for those special moments. We've seen players do this before. Miguel Almiron in Game 1 against the Red Bulls goes for a chip in a situation that maybe called for something else. But Almiron is a special player. He's going to have the confidence to go for these special play. Pity Martinez is that as well. So after the 1-1, it's Tito Villalba, it's Ezequiel Barco up top. Tito Villalba much more impactful in this one than he was on Wednesday at Yankee Stadium. Also impactful was Montreal's backup goalkeeper coming in. He hadn't played in an MLS match all season, but he was the goalkeeper that won the Canadian Championship for the Impact. Clément Diop came over from the LA Galaxy and had been kind of biding his time here in Montreal behind Evan Bush. He kept Montreal in this game. It should have been based off quality of chances an Atlanta win. Clément Diop with 2 great saves late that kept Montreal at 1-1. Here's the first one.
Barco and Lorenowitz. Barco to the left, Lorenowitz to the right. Marufo has blown the whistle. Barco up to the ball, goes for goal. Diving save, Diop out for a corner. What a save!
It's a great save on the Barco free kick, but the one on Villalba late is one of the best saves I've ever seen in person. I have no idea how Clément Diop did this.
Back to Gressel, right corner of the 18. Drop back further to Miles Robinson. Miles over to Pogba on the left wing. Pogba up ahead to Tito, top of the box. Turn, shot. Oh, what a save by Diop out for a corner on an unbelievable shot by Tito.
I literally fell to my knees. Like, I thought that was the game winner because we were right behind Tito in line with where that shot was headed. And it looked like it would be one of the goals of the year candidates because it's that good of a strike from Villalba. It's curling. Looks like it's curling around the goalkeeper into that side netting. Somehow, Diop gets up and makes the save.
Yeah, with the traffic that was in between the point of impact and Diop, I don't know. You just sit there and you don't know how he got the paw on it, but you know, when you get the opportunity to kind of step back a little bit and you sit there, you tip your hat for a moment like that because that was, you know, those were 2 tremendous saves that Diop came out with, and rumor has it that Jarrett Smith and the rest of the family actually were right behind that as well. And he was a lot closer than you were, and he had no idea how Diop ended up with that save either. A lot of us don't know how Diop made both of those saves, but there are those times when a keeper's locked in and he's got everything guessed right, and he did on both of those opportunities.
It's a great save, and it keeps Montreal at 1-1. It's not enough for Montreal to stay in the playoff race. New England was winning at Gillette Stadium over NYC. That was going to eliminate everybody else no matter what. But Montreal showed, I think, some heart. They showed some pride. Their fans were – it was an interesting vibe because I think the Canadian Championship on Wednesday made this one less meaningful. I think everyone knew that the playoffs were probably not going to happen. I didn't expect New England to get the win. I thought that game would end up as a draw and New England would get their spot. But any which way, you kind of felt like New England was going to find enough, and the hill that Montreal had to climb was going to be too much. But they put in a fight. They did not come in and lay down, and I think their great crowd really appreciated that. It was a wonderful atmosphere as the game went on, especially after Montreal started to go for it with their subs and they found the equalizer. It was pretty raucous for the final 10, 15 minutes. Yeah,
and you could tell in some of the TV shots from our friends at Fox Sports South and Southeast that, especially behind the nets, you had the supporters, the supporters groups that were there for Montreal. And I think that, and it's a point that we talk about a lot, that if Montreal puts a consistently winning product out there on the pitch, Stade Saputo can be a very, very special place. It's an intimate setting. and it's to your point, what you said, it's a cool vibe. And if you have a cool vibe, an intimate setting, and a successful football team, then it's going to be a fun run and a very difficult place to play if you're going up against Montreal. So I think that if they put something out there, it's going to be a fun place to play, more fun than it was 2 weeks.
We're going to take a quick break and come back with some quotes from players from Frank DeBoer and start getting into the Overreaction Monday timeline. Go ahead and tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Use the hashtag. We'll get into your thoughts from Atlanta and from Montreal this morning. Thanks for listening. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here and up there and over the border. It's kind of how it's going today.
Yeah.
Soccer everywhere.
Soccer up there.
Yes. One bit of programming information for you. Soccer over there will not be live today. It'll be tomorrow from the Brew House. It'll be a preview, a prelude, if you will, to Boca Juniors and River Plate, first leg of the Copa Libertadores semifinals. It's going to be at River tomorrow night. That game kicks off at 8:30, and we're going to hang out and watch that at the Brew House as well. So if you want to come out, 6 o'clock, we'll get you caught up on Champions League. We'll get you caught up on all the leagues in Europe and around the world from the weekend. And then we'll set the scene for Boca and River, first leg of the Copa Libertadores semifinals. Come hang out with us at the Brew House Cafe tomorrow night. One bit of news that popped up this morning. ESPN Plus has now officially acquired the Bundesliga going forward. Will begin next August. So this is the final season for the Bundesliga on the Fox family of networks. More than 300 top-flight games each season will go to ESPN Plus and ESPN Networks, which is interesting that they include that. So it's not all ESPN Plus, as well as live streams of the DFL Super Cup and relegation playoff matches. ESPN Plus is grabbing everything. Just flat out.
All the Liga.
All the Ligas is headed to ESPN Plus. It is pretty impressive. So that's another one for your streaming questions that you have out there. ESPN Plus is pretty much a must at this point. Let's get back to Atlanta Montreal. A couple quotes from after the match from the Atlanta side. Frank DeBoer, It was a much better team effort. We played compact and a little bit deeper. We pressed, and I am very pleased. I think we deserved more. Completely agree with that. First half especially, they were very focused on Gressel and Merrim's positioning. It was much deeper, much safer. A couple things that it did. One, you were able to just be a little more cohesive defensively. But also that meant you conceded more possession because you weren't up higher. Where Frank says we pressed, and I'm very pleased, that was a little bit later. But early on, it felt like a very big focus on staying organized. And that felt like the number one bullet point on the board going into the game. And I think they accomplished that. And coming off of the match against NYC, it was needed.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you look at the possession numbers, I think it was 53-47 in the first half, and it finished 57-43 or something like that.
Yeah. It was one where it's tough for Atlanta to truly dominate possession if they're going to play deeper. And that's the balance. And I think that's what you have to figure out as you get towards the postseason. And that's going to be the hardest thing for Atlanta. It's been the ongoing conversation, hasn't it? Early on, felt like they were more defensive because they were more focused on it. That started to expand a little bit in the 4-3-3, not quite to where they wanted to be. And obviously from what some of the players have said, where they felt comfortable. And then it went really strong the other way to throw everybody forward. And we're going to have a lot of 1v1s defensively. Well, good teams are going to punish you in those. And you have to be a little more organized. So now, can they find a better balance? It's tricky. We talked about it Friday with all of the different combinations defensively. And this was a different combination defensively. Michael Parkhurst returned to the lineup. And Parkhurst, I thought, played very, very well. He said he was pleased with his performance, but he also said, quote, "I'm disappointed that I couldn't finish the game. I just got tired and my legs cramped up a little bit and I couldn't let go of it. I had to come off." Parkey was really strong, and it was different than we had seen Parkey used in his last few appearances, where when he played in the three-man back line, he played to the right of Miles Robinson. This time he was the central one. Miles was off to the right. And the trade-off with that, I think, is sitting deeper, because you don't want to create 1v1 situations and put Michael Parkhurst in foot races. It's just not a smart tactical plan. He's not going to win those. You want him to be able to sit deep and organize and keep the group together. But that means you're going to concede some other things. That means your wingbacks are going to have to be more defensive. That means you're going to concede the possession a bit. And that means when you go forward, you need to be smart about how you do it. If you get numbers forward, you can't have a giveaway. If you decide, we're going to go fast, then, well, it's going to be the front three, maybe the front four on their own. They're not going to get the extra bodies forward that they have in the last few months. It's a tough balancing act at this point with where this team is and all of the changes and all of the minutes and all of the matches they've played, and figuring out the best 11 and the best tactical strategy with it, because every move with somebody new in the 11, John, means you have to tweak something else. It's not just plug and play. Parkhurst coming into the back line means you play defensively very different.
Let me ask you this. With Parkey and Jeff in the lineup, and we've mentioned methodical was a word that I brought up in the first segment. To me, it just seemed calmer, and I can't really pin that down, but it just seemed as they were working their way into the match, everything just seemed calmer at the back with those two guys specifically involved in play, where if there was something that Montreal tried, you always saw Jeff coming back and helping out defensively and taking charge. You saw Parkey at the back taking charge. It just seemed a calmer vibe with the two of them there. Was that what you and Mike were seeing?
Yeah, it felt that way to me. I actually mentioned that. Even when Atlanta wasn't having the possession, it felt like they were comfortable. It didn't feel like they were at risk for anything. And I think Parkhurst and Larenowitz's presence is definitely a part of that. I can't wait to see what happens next with this group and how they play against New England, because you have a very good chance that the match against New England next weekend is a prelude to a playoff match against New England in 2 weeks. And how does that affect your mindset here? Is this a game to test something? Is it a game to say, all right, well, what can we do against this New England team? How can we play it? Let's try plan A. Because you're going to have more than likely a chance to change that for plan B if you need to for the second time around, or you hit on plan A that works. That's a really tricky situation. It's not ideal. I don't love it. Although I think New England is the weakest of the 7 coming in, and not just because of their record. I think they're the team that you're most likely to beat at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But I don't like playing them back-to-back games because, one, it just ups the intensity a little bit, because everything from game 1 is going to factor into game 2. It becomes a de facto, 2-leg series, even though it's not at all. It has that feel of it, and it's just difficult. I mean, Frank said something that I thought was interesting. He said, every game has an influence on the next game. That's a really deep line. After this game, that's what he said. Every game has an influence on the next game. It does. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. The game at Yankee Stadium had an influence on this one. You're more defensive. You're more focused on organization here because of all the breakdowns at Yankee Stadium. All right. So you were more organized here. You got Barco back into the team. I thought Ezequiel Barco looked great. Pity Martinez was in a little bit different kind of role. I thought he was much more of a playmaker than I'm accustomed to seeing him play. Usually he's a guy who wants to finish plays, not build plays. I thought he was very involved. I called him an enganche on the broadcast. It's the Argentine term for, a playmaker, but it's a little different. Like, I think with Pitti, I noticed him trying to find space on the ball, to get on the ball, trying to find space on the field, trying to create space for others. He was very focused on building going forward for Atlanta. And that's not his normal game, but it was needed here. And I thought he was very good in that kind of role. I really liked the Pitti-Barco combination up top. And if you don't have Joseph, that's one. But look, I think at this point, with Joseph on a treadmill with whatever no G, low G, whatever that thing was on it, hopefully you can add a little bit of G over the next couple of weeks. And I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't play in the playoffs. I really would be shocked at this point, considering the fact that he has been on a treadmill and he is moving around. Yeah, he's not in training yet, but you got 3 weeks at this point. You're looking at the weekend of October 19th, 20th. And yeah, the Falcons play on the 20th. It's not completely confirmed that the 19th is the date yet, so hang tight. But you've got time for him to get ready. I think he's going to play. But if he's not completely effective, or if you decide to pair the 3 of them up, and I think it's the way to go, Barco, Pitti, Martinez, and Joseph, if you can defend behind that, if you have a smart setup to defend behind that, those 3 can win you games.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be the way to go in the postseason, is finding that balance between what we've seen in all the different variations this season, the 3-4-3 early on, the 4-3-3 after that, the 3-5-2 that sometimes looks like a 3-4-3 when it's Barco and Pitti and Joseph. If you go into the postseason with your 3 center backs, with your 2 wing backs that can step up a little bit and kind of fill the gaps, and your 2 central midfielders that are going to have to cover a lot of ground, there's going to be a lot of pressure on those 2. But they can sit more. and say, all right, we're going to fill the lanes. We're going to fill the gaps. We're going to stay organized. We'll go and help when we can, but we're going to defend, and then let those three go figure things out. Those are three guys who can figure things out.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing the thought pattern here, because what Frank said is that the last match has an impact on the next match, and so on and so on and so on. I mean, folks, the matches that you had at the beginning of the year when you were trying to figure things out with the injuries that you had helped you figure things out lineup wise, helped you figure things out personnel wise, brought in other personnel, and it is this the adding of the dominoes and how things continue to cascade going forward. That's just it is an incredibly deep comment. And when you said, you're like, yeah, I mean, it absolutely is the case, is that last match has an impact on the next match and how you're going to think things through from Montreal getting ready for New England, knowing what New England is having to go through and what Atlanta's having to go through on the busiest day of the year, on one of the most chaotic days of the year. There's a lot of stuff in play.
Every match has an influence on the next match. Every game has an influence on the next game.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think you saw progress from Wednesday to Sunday. And I think you also saw maybe a way forward for this team to try to get the best of what it has today, what it has right now in the postseason. And I don't think it'll be the same setup that we saw last year in the postseason. I think the personality of the group is different, not just the manager, but the group. And I think you can be more attack-minded than you were last season at this point. But when you can get Barco, Pitti, and Joseph as your three main attackers and have a setup to protect them, to defend for them, and grind out results in the postseason, take it. Absolutely, we'll take it. I think at this point, with where this team is, I mean, this has been a grind of a season. An absolute grind of a season. Sunday will be game 44. Yes, teams in Europe play those number of games in league and cup and all that, and they also have rosters that are bigger, and they're able to rotate more. You don't have as much of that with this group, and you've had injuries that have even lessened the size of the roster. So, game 44 on Sunday. And you're in a spot where I feel like this is a team that can win MLS Cup. I feel like New York City is a team that can win MLS Cup. I feel like Philadelphia is a team that can win MLS Cup. In the East, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Maybe Toronto. They've added so many faces, I just don't know if they're going to mesh quickly enough. That they added so many in the summer, late in the summer, that can they? Maybe. They have the talent to do it, but I don't know if they have the cohesiveness to do it. Out west, obviously, LAFC can win MLS Cup. Who else? Can Minnesota? I don't know if I'd rule them out yet. You would have said the LA Galaxy, but they can't beat the Vancouver Whitecaps.
No, plus 900.
Holy. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, we've known the Galaxy defending has been a problem, but oof. You could have said Portland too, but they might not get in. Atlanta's one of a small number of teams that you feel like going into the postseason can be lifting a trophy at the end of it. I really, truly think they have the ability to do it. And I think we saw a little bit of what Frank said afterwards, of each game influencing the next. I think you learned things at Yankee Stadium about the way this team has been playing lately. This time of year, you can't do it. And you've got to be safer. And I think this was the first step in that direction of more safety. Let's let our attacking players do their thing, but also create a structure to be safer, to not risk as much. Because one sequence like what happened at the end against Montreal, where you get into a 1v1 and you lose it, that can end your season in this playoff format. So you want every bit of safety, every bit of protection that you can. And I feel like that's what they're building to. We're going to take a break, come back, finish up with the Twitter timeline right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. SDH on the road in Montreal. Lots of tweets to get into on an Overreaction Monday. John, where do you want to start?
Let's start with Waka Tata Flame.
What up, Waka?
I don't listen to soccer down here at Longshoe for 1 week, and now I'm so confused about what's going on.
Well, you need a little more context. Waka is talking about the playoff picture, and let's get caught up after last night's stupidity out west.
Crazy.
So, in the East, we know the 7 teams that are in. We know that New York City has the top spot. We don't know who's going to finish anywhere between 2nd and 7th. We know that there are some who can only finish in certain spots. But I wish MLS had a little bit better position here, but they don't, of course. All right, so right now, as it stands, going into Decision Day, Atlanta has the advantage for the number 2 spot. All they have to do is match what Philadelphia does or do better, obviously. If Philly wins, Atlanta has to win. If Philly draws, Atlanta has to win or draw. If Philly loses, doesn't matter. They can't get into 2nd because of the first tiebreaker being wins, and Atlanta has 17 wins. Okay, so that's the easy part. Atlanta can be 2nd, they can be 3rd. Nobody else can be 2nd or 3rd. 4 through 7 is pretty much ridiculous. DC United holds all the cards. On Decision Day, without Wayne Rooney, who got a yellow card and will be suspended on accumulation. On Decision Day, DC is hosting FC Cincinnati. They should be able to take advantage of that. Should being the key word. If they win, they're in 4th. Okay. New York is in 5th. Toronto is in 6th. New England is in 7th. New England can go all the way up to 5. Toronto can fall to 7. Red Bulls can't fall to 7. DC can't fall to 7. So if Atlanta finishes 2nd, you're facing either New England or Toronto. And if Atlanta finishes second, most scenarios would mean they would have taken points off of New England, which would put them into the 7th spot. So if Atlanta wins or Atlanta draws with New England, they will play again in 2 weeks. That's a key to understand here. If New England wins, and let's say Philadelphia loses, then Atlanta's still second. And then it depends on what Toronto does on decision day. Toronto on decision day, as I look at the schedule, they are hosting Columbus. Winnable. Not definite, but winnable.
Testy.
So that's the East. You've got some different scenarios. Right now in the West, 9 teams for 7 spots. We know LAFC's got number 1 locked up. We know Minnesota, Seattle, LA Galaxy, and Real Salt Lake are in. 6 through 9 are separated by 4 points. Colorado can get in still, which is unfreaking believable that the Colorado Rapids can still get into the playoffs on decision day.
Fighting Frasers.
It's wild, and they might have to build a statue to Connor Casey as well as Robin Fraser if this happens. San Jose right now is on the outside looking in as well. They're in 8th. Portland is on 46 points in 6th. Dallas is on 45 points in 7th. Okay, so who do they face? Dallas gets Sporting Kansas City coming to town. Should be okay. Sporting Kansas City, has been eliminated. They've had a ton of injuries. But Sporting Kansas City got a point with Portland yesterday. So maybe you don't want to count them out. And I'm not counting out Peter Vermes and ruining anybody's day. I think he would take great pride in that. Colorado goes to Bank of California Stadium to face LAFC. Now, you can look at this a number of ways. LAFC is not going to rest guys and just roll over, because if they win, they break the points record. They are on 69 points right now. If they win, they break the Red Bulls record that they set last year. I think they want that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to risk anybody who has any kind of injury concern to get there. So, does that help Colorado? Maybe. Colorado gets in, they're going to have to earn it. The other ones, when you look at Portland and San Jose, well, they'll be facing each other at Providence Park.
How do?
That's the national TV game on ESPN. The rest, there's going to be a look-in show, which is going to be kind of cool. Dallas, 45, Portland, 46. They're the 2 that are in right now. San Jose, 44, Colorado, 42. Portland and San Jose, if Portland wins or draws, they're in. If they lose, San Jose jumps them. Doesn't mean Portland is definitely out, but it means San Jose is in. The West is going to be weird, and the West is going to come down to watching it. I don't see Colorado getting a win because they have to win to have any hope here. I don't see them getting a win at LAFC, but stranger things have happened. Dallas, a win. Obviously, they're in. A draw, I'm looking at the math. A draw would not be enough for Dallas. They have to win to guarantee that they're in. Because if Dallas and Kansas City draw, then Dallas goes to 46 points. If San Jose beats Portland and goes to 47 points, then they're in as the 6. Portland and Dallas are on 46, and Portland has the win tiebreaker. So Dallas has to win to guarantee they're in. The West is crazy. Waka, I hope that made a little bit of sense, but I make no guarantees.
Oh, yes. So,
welcome to Decision Day.
Welcome to Decision Day. Michael Cinco with a couple of thoughts this morning.
Okay.
He thought the Parkey threesome was better than the Pogba 3. Was that just nostalgia, or did Cap give FDB something to think about? # overreaction Monday only because that's what you want us to tag it with.
That's just the tag. Yes, this was not an overreaction. It can also qualify as under and on par reactions too. I think he did. I think Michael Parkhurst looked very good. He cramped up at the end. That's a little bit of a concern, but I think you can make that. I think he'll be okay. I think you can have him ready to go. You also were more conservative with Parkhurst there, which you weren't with Pogba, so that's a little different. I didn't think Pogba looked great when he came on late. I thought he was a little kind of scattered, and the game was a little scattered at that point, but Pogba was a little reckless in pushing forward at times, and I think at this time of the year, reckless is not a good spot to be in. The thing is, when you look back at it, we talked about it on Friday, the Pogba, LGP, Robinson trio had won 3 games in their 3 starts together before the New York City match. So they're 3-1. The group that has had the best record playing together is LGP, Robinson, and Escobar. And I think everybody's focused on Parkhurst being into the back line. Escobar being out was maybe the surprise, but kind of not, because he hasn't played great as of late. And again, when you talk about security and when you talk about less risk, Parkhurst is a safer option than either Escobar or Pogba because he's going to stay home. And Robinson and LGP are going to adjust their games to that as well. So I think in the postseason, it's probably the better route. That does mean you're going to be committing fewer numbers forward. You know, you're not going to get those runs from Escobar making the run out of the back. LGP will make some, and Robinson will have to stay home. Robinson's not going to make as many runs out of the back. So you're going to have to generate more chances with fewer numbers of players. And that can be done, but that's the trade-off that you need to make at this time of year. I think we got a preview of that yesterday.
Then the second thought from Michael this morning, very early on, by the way. He says the Christmas list for the show, more guests, especially Felipe and Chris Furmeister, more times a week. And he says, stop the juice box joke. It's not funny anymore.
Oh, no. He doesn't like the juice boxes?
And he says, always lead with Atlanta United stories. My commute rarely is 2 hours, so you're causing me too much distracted driving to fast forward to find it.
Well, we can't control when these breaks, but we appreciate you listening. We try to cover a little bit of everything, but yeah, I think we're obviously going to cover more Atlanta United stuff. If you have any other replacements for juice boxes, please recommend them. Please bring them along. I think you guys get the joke. I think you guys get the humor of it. We're not going to start breaking into dollars and cents when it comes down to those games and odds and stuff like that. That's not what we're
not lock it up.
Lock it in, actually.
That.
Yeah. Don't want to be that.
Shows you how much I watch it.
Yeah. Don't want to. No. Not the idea. Not the idea. So we try to have some fun with it. If you want to recommend a suggestion for alternatives to juice boxes, then have at it. We'll take it for sure. Yes, yeah, we definitely want to do more of that. Some of it's just coordinating schedules and stuff. So we will do our best. Thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it, though.
Paul Rutledge with a joke this morning.
Okay.
You know what you call a Piatti that doesn't belong to you?
Go ahead and say it.
Nacho Piatti. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Ay, Dios mío.
That was Paul.
You sure you didn't write that?
Positive. It's in his handwriting on Twitter.
Okay. Good job, Paul. That was a good one. I got a giggle out of it. I'll take that on a Monday morning.
Yes. Nathan Pugh. Orlando stinks with 3 exclamation points. Hashtag never been a more on par reaction on a Monday ever.
Well, Nathan ain't wrong. Nathan ain't wrong at all when you go back and look at Orlando's concluding run to this season where they have had a chance to get into the playoffs. What's Orlando's record in their last 7? 0-3-4. What did they have to do yesterday to get one of the four? A late equalizer against Cincinnati. A stoppage time equalizer against Cincinnati. Welcome to Orlando. It's not fun.
No. And let's see, I'm trying to look at one more before we get to the hour.
Hold that.
Vine City FC.
Hold that. I want to give you in that 7 from Orlando City, because it's more than just 0-3-4, which is really bad when you're trying to get into the playoffs. Your 3 losses: Atlanta at home, at San Jose, not too bad, at Houston in a game where Houston had been eliminated a long time ago. You went to Minnesota and got a draw. That's a good draw. You drew with LA when Vela was out injured, but that was at home. That's not a bad draw. The 3-3 draw with New England is going to be the one that comes back to bite you. That's the one that puts you out of the playoffs, because you were at home. You were facing the team that is getting the spot that you wanted, and you couldn't win that match. That's the problem with Orlando. And that was a wild 3-3 where New England opened the scoring. It's an own goal. Nani gets an equalizer, but then 2 goals late in the first half give New England a 3-1 lead. It's great that Orlando came back early in the second to equalize, but you can't fall behind 3-1 at home in what's borderline an elimination game. I don't know what's next for Orlando, but now I think there have to be some questions. Is O'Connor the guy?
Yeah, that's question number 1.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you blow it up, is it going to be any better?
I know, that's another 3 seasons maybe of trying to get things squared away.
Maybe. It better not be. I mean, I think it shouldn't be another 3 seasons. I think we've seen in this league now that you can rebuild a lot quicker, but I don't know. I don't know what the route is for Orlando at this point. They have to really look in the mirror at their roster and at the coach and make some decisions, because I just don't know where they're going to fit into the Eastern Conference next year. I don't see light at the end of the tunnel for them yet.
Might be an oncoming train.
I don't even know about that. It feels like they're just off to the side. Like they're just hanging out on the side of the tracks, and there's no real movement any which way. I don't know what's next for Orlando, but you're 5 years in now, no playoffs and no progress outside of not being worse than you were last season when you were about as bad as you can be in this league. So, yay, small victories.
Yay.
But it's not good enough. That fan base deserves better. And anything that people say about Orlando fans not coming out at this point, I think they're not coming out for a reason. And I think it's because this team has not been a good product for them. And that's a shame, because they should have, and we've seen it at times, be a very big fan base. But right now, there's not a lot of motivation to go, because why should there be? We'll talk about other managers who could be on a hot seat. We'll talk about kind of some of the teams that their season has ended, what could be next for them. We'll also get back into the Twitter timeline right after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Soccer down here. I'm in Montreal. John's in Decatur.
Check.
You guys are everywhere. So we're taking your tweets. So we're making this a global thing, y'all.
Global thing. Natasha, maybe I missed it, but I don't think I ever heard y'all address the letter Joseph posted to his Instagram regarding the Venezuelan national team, and I'd like to hear your thoughts, especially because I haven't seen a full translation and my high school Spanish is lacking.
Yeah, I don't have the full translation in front of me. And when it first popped up, I wasn't because it popped up before he posted it. And I wasn't 100% sure it was accurate. And that was one reason I kind of stayed away from it for a minute. I don't know the details. I don't know how the Venezuelan camp has been organized and all of that, but I do remember the trip to Europe. What was it, in the March window when Venezuela beat Argentina in Spain? I think it was in the March window. It was earlier in the year, and Joseph scored on the penalty. I remember when they went to play their second game on that trip, there were problems with the uniforms because the uniform company didn't print enough or something. I mean, it was something just ridiculous. When you're getting things like that happening, it's unorganized and it's not a great situation to be in. Those things make you question it. And Joseph saying that he doesn't want to go play until changes are made, and specifically mentioning the manager. He's at a point in his career. I think the hard thing for him is, how much his country means to him, and how much he wants to lead his country to a World Cup. And this is a generation of players that has the ability to go to a World Cup. But they can't do it if they're not getting supported properly. And if the manager's part of that, if the staff is part of that, whatever it is, that has to change. And these players are professionals. They're not just waiting around to play for their country. They're playing for their clubs. And when they go out on these international trips and it's poorly handled and poorly organized, and they're brought in and told one thing, and then that doesn't happen, and then they go, and in Joseph's situation, he goes to Copa America and barely plays, and he's coming off of a career year and an outstanding season, and we've seen the growth in Joseph Martinez as a player over the last 3 years. There's no way you can argue that he should not be playing more for Venezuela. I said it throughout the Copa America. If I've got Salomon Rondon and Joseph Martinez, I'm going to figure out a way to play both of them. Yep. And you've got more talent coming through. I'm going to figure out a way to get my most talented players on the field. And Joseph's one of those. So the experiences that he's had with the national team lately, I'm not shocked by it. It's sad because I think it's sad for him. I think it's something that he would love to be able to be part of and love to want to help make the World Cup a reality, a great Copa America next year a reality, but he feels like he doesn't have the support to do that. And that's a shame. And I hope that, one, this gets a conversation going with the Venezuelan Federation and inside the national team program that Joseph isn't the only one who said these kinds of things. I've seen it in media reports as well. And I saw a lot of folks who follow the Venezuelan national team, not take issue with what Joseph said and kind of say, well, yeah, this is not a surprise. So hopefully it leads to change. And hopefully it leads to Joseph returning to play for Venezuela very soon, because I think that's where he wants to be, but not in the current situation.
Wade at T-Wade Hadaway. Hashtag Overreaction Monday. We need to talk about Brandon Vasquez. A striker without that killer instinct is not a striker. He looked confused on many touches / opportunities. Thoughts?
He's a unique player. I mean, remember, Tata Martino played him as a winger. I'm thinking that Tata Martino saw some of the things that Wade is saying here about, is he a true striker? I don't know. The comparison I've had for Brandon Vasquez has been Kenny Cooper. And if you followed MLS, and Cooper made it to some national team work, Cooper looked a lot like Brandon Vasquez. Big, strong, like the prototypical number 9 you would expect. But his game was not suited to being that number 9. He was better out wide running at players. And I thought that was where he had his best moments in his professional career. But you see him and you're like, he's got to play as a 9. He's got to be a 9. And you play him as a 9. You're like, well, he's not a 9. Well, no, he's not a 9. Just because he looks like one doesn't mean he is. I don't know if Brandon is or not. We've seen him over the last few years play out wide and be effective. This year, both with Atlanta United 2 and with the first team, we've seen him play far more as a true number 9 and be effective. I think he's still a young player. And I think you're still kind of figuring out what the best situation is for him. But he is getting to a point in his career that you need to see more consistency. And that's the number one issue that I think he's having at the moment, and honestly in 2019 as a whole. Consistency. You're not going to earn starting spots. You're not going to earn playing time if you're inconsistent. And that's been the number one knock on Brandon Vasquez. I think he has the ability. I think he has, obviously, the physical gifts. I think he has a really good touch. I think he has a good eye for a pass. But is he a killer as a striker? I don't know yet. And that's becoming a little bit of a problem, because that yet maybe at this point in his career, there shouldn't be as much of a question. And that's where we're at with Vasquez. And you're going to get to a point where either it's this year or next that you're going to be talking about contract issues, and you're going to be questioning, is it time to move on or renew? And I don't know if you really have a definitive answer just yet. I thought the chance that, of course, everybody's going to get into from yesterday, it's poorly taken, where it's the cross back. It's just behind Hindman. He lets it run. Vasquez charging onto it and puts it into the stands. That's one that you just can't do. You just can't miss that chance. You've got to test the goalkeeper. But then before that, in the first half, Vasquez took a great shot from distance, long shot, dipping, takes a hop, forces Diop into a save. I think it gave away a corner. Vasquez took a free kick, put it right on frames, right at the goalkeeper, but it is on goal, forces the save. He had some good moments yesterday. He had the one really bad moment. I just don't know exactly what kind of player he's going to end up being. And I think we need to know that soon.
Vine City FC says, throw out the hierarchy. Any of the 14 teams can win this thing, meaning MLS Cup.
I disagree. I think there's some that feel like they're happy to be there. I don't see New England, even though Carlos Heel and Gustavo Bo can scare you. I don't see them winning it. I don't see out west. Let's see. Who do I think ends up getting in? I'm going to assume that it is Dallas and Portland. Portland should, at home, take care of San Jose. I mean, if they don't deserve it to be in. That should be a game that they get to draw and get in. Dallas should be able to take care at home of a team in Kansas City that's eliminated. So I don't think Dallas is good enough to win MLS Cup. I do think Portland can, but they haven't shown it in a long time. RSL has questions. Yeah. I don't think they quite have the talent there yet. I think LA can because you have Zlatan. And if you win games 5-4, maybe. I'm not going to rule them out. I just don't think they're good enough defensively. Seattle can if Nicolas Ladero is healthy. If he's not, they can't. Minnesota can. They're balanced. LA obviously can. In the East, Toronto, they have the pedigree. I don't exactly know what they are at this point with these new faces and the wingers popping in and what they are, but they have Pozuelo. They have Josie Altidore. They have players that can win you a cup. The Red Bulls, I don't think they can. I think they're too inconsistent. I think there's just too many. Are they going to be a very, aggressive pressing team? Are they trying to do something else? They just feel stuck in between. Don't think they can. DC, I thought they could. I'm not thinking they can now. But I'm not going to completely rule them out because Wayne Rooney and Lucho Acosta, you're talking about two game changers. Can they get it together to do it when it's probably going to be their last games in a DC kit? Maybe that's the motivation they need. I don't know. Philadelphia absolutely can. Atlanta can. NYC can. So about half, I guess, I would say that have a legitimate conversation about winning it all. But I think there are some that are happy to be there.
Let's see. Jorge B. this morning. It was good to see Parkey back in the starting lineup along with Jeff since we were missing some of the veteran leadership. Are we going to see them more often as we advance deep in the playoffs? You talked about that in hour one.
Yeah, it's a good question. I really think that you could. The interesting one is going to be with Barco, Pitti, and Joseph. Who are your two central midfielders behind that? Because you have to make decisions between Jeff Lorenowitz, Darlington Nagbe, Eric Remedi, Emerson Heineman. 2 of 4. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy to make that decision. Remedi and Nagbe probably give you the most range. Jeff and Nagbe feels like maybe the safer play. But you're going to have to sacrifice 2 good players to fit Barco back into the team and keep the 3 center backs and play in this 3-5-2, 3-4-2, 1-3-4-3, whatever you want to call it. That's what it's looking like. And that's what's looking like the best way to play in the postseason. So you can't get everybody on the field, and that's going to be a very difficult decision. I would like to have that veteran leadership in these moments. I would. I think it helps. But you also then have to make that sacrifice that we talked about in hour number 1. You're going to have to be a little more defensive to manage the difference in pace and the difference in the ability to cover ground. You're going to have to manage that, or you're going to put your veterans in bad spots. And I don't think Frank de Boer is going to allow that to happen. If you have the more veteran group in, less pace, you're going to be a little more conservative and let your front 3 go figure it out.
Daniel Price for the morning. He says he has thoughts from a weird weekend all around MLS.
Okay.
From Montreal, he says it wasn't our best game of the year, but it was miles better than NYCFC. The backline looked better besides one large mistake that led to the equalizer.
Yeah, it's one individual breakdown. I mean, it's just one moment where you lose a 1v1 and you get beat and you get punished. Those are the moments that can knock you out of the postseason. That's the scary thing about the current format. So hopefully you can eliminate those mistakes. And Leandro Gonzalez Perez is a player who, over his 3 years here in Atlanta, he has been an outstanding center back. Never gotten his due nationally, in my opinion. But he's had more moments like that this year than we've seen in the previous 2. So, is there anything you can do? I don't think you have anybody you can plug in instead, because I think there's questions about all the different possibilities. I think you just, again, have to be a little safer and try to avoid those 1v1 situations, period.
Then he says, thought it looked increasingly better with Parkey leading the guys. More confidence all around, more dynamic with Jeff Larentowicz adding something to the midfield. Upset PT didn't bury the best chance of the night, and Tito's got called offside.
Yeah, the offside one, we never got a replay in the booth. I've seen a still shot of Merrim on the Barco chip, and it looks like he might be a step off. And he received it off of the chip that went off the bar. If it goes in, it's a goal. That ball seemed to hang in the air too. Oh my gosh. Like it felt like Barco chipped it and we're just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen. I thought it was going to drop under the bar. Unbelievable from Zeke. Thought he had pulled it off. It's hard to argue. I mean, without seeing it, without having that down the line shot, it looks like Merrim's a step off. How it goes. There was a question on Twitter right after the game, and this was before I had seen anything, about in an offside situation, and the bar is like a reset. It's not. If an opposing player plays it intentionally, and we've had that come up from time to time, that resets offside. In that situation, if Merrim is offside on the initial play from Barco, when Merrim becomes involved in the play, he's offside. The bar doesn't change it. Only an opposing player playing intentionally would.
And then Daniel's last thought, it seems like everywhere we go, we somehow bring the best out of the enemy goalie. They had one of their best games in their whole career against us, it seems. One game left with a lot on the line for us with that possible second home game in the playoffs.
Don't say he was standing on his head. People will get upset about that. I avoided it. I didn't say it one time yesterday.
Yeah.
But he made some amazing saves. I mean, Clément Diop is a goalkeeper that had some moments in LA, and he had some really bad moments in LA. It was some shocking, like just awful plays from him, but he's capable of spectacular saves, and we saw it firsthand. If he could ever find more consistency, he's a starting level goalkeeper in this league, but you can't have a goalkeeper who has unbelievably bad, shocking breakdowns on a regular basis. And we'll see if now maybe with more experience, some time to just train and get his mind right. He also had some time here in Montreal before the coaching change with Joel Batz, who was the goalkeeper for for France in a World Cup in 1986, and I believe in 82 as well. Batz was an incredible goalkeeper and hopefully passed on some things to Diop to help him just be a little more secure, a little more consistent. Because when he makes saves like he did late in this game to preserve it, you see the talent that he has. He's just got to be better on a more consistent basis and not have the shocking errors that can break teams.
Shiva, why do you think there's been so many mix and matches and inconsistency in our back three? And what do you think is the best lineup for our back three going into the playoff?
So many mix and matches, yellow card accumulation, suspensions, red cards, and injuries. Flat out. That's why. I don't think you've mixed it around in general just because you wanted to. I think you've had to. I don't have it in front of me. The groups of three that played in the games between Houston when you went to the 3-5-2 and NYC. But the only time you had three in a row was Pogba, Robinson, LGP, and they won all three where they were in Portland and then Club America, Portland, and at Orlando. Those three in a row were the only time you had three times where the same three played. When you've had to change it, it's been due to that yellow card accumulation suspension when it comes to Escobar or LGP, a red card with LGP, and injuries. And now the question about changing it from LAFC or from NYCFC to Montreal is form, I think. because in that one, Escobar had moved outside because Gressel was out. Pogba struggled. You wanted to get Parkhurst back in, and Escobar didn't get a spot back. That was the part that I think caught people by surprise the most. For me, it did anyway. I don't know if it's been talked about enough, about Escobar not moving back into the back line and Escobar being an unused sub yesterday. He's been struggling. He's had some moments where he's really struggled with his positioning. And Pogba's had it too. I think Escobar has a little more closing speed and can recover and make up for the mistakes a little bit better than Florentin Pogba. The group that you saw yesterday, in my opinion, is the most tactically astute, the biggest soccer IQs, and are going to make the fewest positional mistakes. And at this point in the year, that might be the best group to go with. Now, it's not as dynamic. Escobar gets forward far more than anyone else in that group, even LGP, because he's got such speed and can get forward and get goals for you. Pogba is a great passer, and especially a great long-range passer. You lose those elements, but you get the leadership of Parkhurst, and you get a group that is a smarter trio in terms of their positioning.
Vine City FC is back. Not sure I like this dual concept, particularly with LGP. Sometimes he acts like he has to prove he's a better soccer player than opponent. He should do his job, slow down the attack until he gets help. If not, take the foul as far away from goal as possible.
Yeah, I think LGP is really good at committing the foul further away from goal. I don't think that part's an issue when it comes to him. He's very smart about that side of it. I think there are times that he's a little too risky with the tackle. And yeah, that definitely plays into it. And that was one when you're facing a player like a Okonkwo that has a speed advantage over you. You can't give him the opportunity to get around you to the outside. You've just got to use the angles and shield, and keep him outside, especially at that moment with the lead. And it's one that I'm trying to remember back situations like that where LGP's been beaten in those moments. And there's not a ton. It's not something that's been a consistent issue with him. But in this moment, he went for the tackle when I don't think it was the best play. I think with a 1-0 lead and with who you had around you, because remember, Florentin Pogba was already up to come in. Parkhurst had went down cramping, I believe, ahead of a corner kick. And they weren't going to make the substitution at that point. Parkhurst was up. But he's cramping up. He's laboring. You're best off at that moment, I think, if you're Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez, just to shield and not let Okonkwo get inside. If he puts in a great cross around you and bends it around you, more power to him. But don't make it easy for him by diving in for a tackle that is a risky play at that point. Because when you commit to the tackle, you've got to win it, or commit a foul and give up that free kick right there. And you did neither. And then you concede a goal. That's an issue, and it's a bad decision. And it costs you 2 points. It's that simple. It's not something that LGP has consistently done, but he did this time, and it hurts you. So you've got to clean those things up. And that's something that you can discuss and work through. And that's something that can change, and it's going to have to, because you're going to be facing Carlos Heel, who would love to get LGP in that situation on Sunday. Gustavo Bo would be going to goal in that situation, but he's another one. And then in the postseason, think about all the talent that you're going to see in the Eastern Conference playoffs if you keep advancing. You've got guys who can force you into those decisions, and you've got to make better ones going forward. We're going to take a break, come back, more of your Twitter thoughts right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Soccer down here, up there, from Montreal this morning. At least my part of it is. That's why it sounds a little funny. Apologize for the not quite so good audio, but thanks for bearing with us this morning. John is in Decatur in his normal location. I am looking out at downtown Montreal. Gonna hop on a plane here in about 5 hours and be making my way back to Atlanta.
But you're going to get a good meal before you go, right?
Yes, I had a good meal last night, actually, after the game. Poutineville was awesome. Awesome meal at Poutineville. And made sure to properly hydrate with all of the sodium in the poutine because you have to. Otherwise, you feel hungover. Had a nice Molson's X and a big bowl of poutine that I added. So the base poutine, the basic fries, cheese curds, gravy, the regular. I didn't get weird gravy, didn't get weird cheese.
Nah.
I wanted to be consistent. But I did add the pulled pork and sauteed onions and green peppers. And amazing. Nice. Amazing. Oh, and by the way, Stade Saputo has moved up into the number one spot in the league, of course, outside of Atlanta. The number one stadium in the league for my mind, just for the stadium. I love the venue. I love the feel of it. It feels different than the other venues of that size around the league. And the press box food, amazing.
Yeah?
Amazing.
Well, what was it? Don't just sit there
I mean,
and
they
leave us hanging.
They had everything. Like, they had a nice charcuterie board out. I was like, wow, okay, this is fancy.
They had a charcuterie board out.
Yes, this is fancy for the press box. That was there. They had all kinds of little desserts. Chocolate mousse. Just incredible. Some flan that was really good. I had some short ribs. And what else did I have with it? What was it that I got with it?
What didn't you have at this point?
Well, it was really good. And I was starving because I got in time to get an Uber to the hotel, drop my bags, and then go. So I didn't have lunch. So I was very hungry at this point. I had a lot. It was awesome.
Oh, and kudos to the crew at Stade Saputo during the full-time report for trying to disassemble apparently the entire stadium and still apologizing for the fact that they crushed your microphone.
Yeah, they didn't crush the microphone. They just were dragging things down from the camera bay that was right above us, and banging the metal steps that were right in front of the microphone. It was kind of funny. They were very, very nice. Everybody with the Impact and everybody at Stade Saputo was excellent. I can't recommend enough to, when you're looking at trips, to go follow Atlanta United on the road, or if you just get a chance to go to another game around the league, come to Montreal for a game. It's a blast. This is one of my favorite places in this league.
As Jared_Smith did as a part of his Canadian and family adventure.
Yes.
Roberto Rojas apparently heard some stuff with Steve Bruce.
Oh, boy. I think a lot of people heard some stuff with Steve Bruce.
Yeah, after the 5-0 demolition by Leicester on the weekend. So Steve Bruce on Miguel Almiron, quote, "He is not an out-and-out center forward or a natural number 10 either. He's an old-fashioned inside forward, so we've got to try and get the best out of him," end quote.
A lot of people have been very upset about this. Very upset. I don't think Miguel Almiron's an out-and-out forward. I'd agree with that part of it. What do you think on that? Let's start with that one.
No, I don't think he's an out-and-out center forward. I just think that I honestly, from the beginning, do not think that Steve Bruce knew what he was getting with Miguel as a player. When Steve Bruce is as misinformed as saying he's got to learn how to play in front of 50,000 people.
Oh no, that's just stupid. Look, I want to go at this one step at a time. You can't take everything else. Let's start with what he said. So he said, give me the quote one more time.
He is not an out-and-out center forward or a natural number 10 either. He's an old-fashioned inside forward.
I'll agree with the first part. He's not an out-and-out forward. Is he an out-and-out number 10? He's not a traditional one. I think that's fair enough. But let's get to what Steve Bruce says that he is. Because inside forward's not a very common term here in the U.S. In the olden days, we're going way back, when teams played the 2-3-5 or a WM, which was more like a 3-2-2-3, which is what it evolved from when they realized playing a 2-3-5 is ridiculous. You really are going to struggle defending. The WM is 3 in the back, 2 in front in the gaps, then 2 inside forwards in front of that, and then 3 up top. The inside forward, and the way the terminology came from, is in that line of 5 up top. You had your center forward, you had your wingers or outside forwards on the outside, obviously, and the guys in between were the inside forwards. They have also been called, as things have evolved, a second striker, inside left, inside right. Look, it's a really weird way to describe it. First off, I would not put Miguel Almiron in that spot either. And that's the part that troubles me, is even trying to decipher Steve Bruce's tactical thoughts from 1935 in terms of inside forwards. I don't think he's a forward in any form or fashion.
Nope.
I think he is one of 2 things to get the best out of him. I think he is a number 10, not in a playmaking role as a number 10, but the role that he played here in Atlanta in the 4-2-3-1. Not the 3-5-2 or 5-3-2 they played in the postseason, where he did play as a second striker. But that was more of a way to make it even more defensive when you wanted to and go 5-4-1, because he dropped in very deep. If you play in transition, you can play Miguel Almiron as a number 10 because you're not asking him to get 80, 90 passes a game and be the focal point of your passing game. He is the focal point of your transition game. And Atlanta under Tata Martino was based on transition. Miguel Almiron made sense in that role. If you're not playing in that way, and Newcastle won't be, I think he's best as an 8. I've said that all along. That's what he played for Lanús. That's what he played with Cerro Porteño. That's what he came up as. He was termed before he came to Atlanta as a flying 8. An attacking box-to-box midfielder. He basically was that here in Atlanta. He just played in a role as a 10. But we talked about it for 2 years. He'd drop in and defend. He'd function more as an 8. He would cover so much ground that he would give you both roles. That, I think, is the best spot for Miguel Almiron. And I don't know Newcastle's team well enough, and I don't study them to be able to tell you, like, is he better than X, Y, or Z in that role? But if you go out this is on 2 different roles because Steve Bruce was not the manager when Miguel Almiron was purchased. If you go out and purchase him and don't know how you're going to use him, that's a problem. If you then hire a manager to come in and manage who, before this transfer window, was the largest outlay of money you have paid for a player ever, and now he's the second largest, and you bring in a manager who doesn't know how to use him, that's a problem. And that's on your decision makers at Newcastle.
And that's what I think has gone down here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they were looking at. I don't know if they did their homework. I don't know if they just understand him as a player. And it's sad to see. I mean, can he be an inside forward? Well, you're going to play a line of 5. Sure, he can be an inside forward because he's going to drop in and play underneath that line anyway, because that's the personality he has on the field. You're not going to play that way. So why are you even using that term? Basically, I feel like you're trying to break out a term that most people don't truly understand anyway, and you're trying to confuse people and hide your confusion. It's stupid. It's a really goofy way of trying to explain, I don't know what to do with this guy. That's my issue with it, is you have him. He is a talent. That is obvious. If you don't see that, then you got bigger problems. You need to figure out how to get the best out of him. And it sounds like Steve Bruce is nowhere near doing that.
Agreed.
I mean, how is he playing for them? Like, wasn't he on the right wing in this last week?
I'm trying to go and see if I can find the layout of how they had him squared away.
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
All right, you're faster.
Newcastle yesterday, 5-0 loss at Leicester. It's very bad.
Yes.
Yes, it appears a 4-2-3-1 is how it was laid out, and Almiron was on the right side of that. So if we go from what Bruce said about he's an inside forward, all right, then you're asking Atsu and Almiron as your wingers to not play wide. They're not going to be out on the touchline. They're going to be tucked in because you want your outside backs to get forward and provide the width. That's your idea here then. I think you're putting him in a spot that you're not going to get the best out of him in. I mean, can he play it? Sure. Can he do a job? Miguel Almiron can do a job for you. He's one of the hardest working players that I've seen. But do you want to use a player of his ability in a role like that to do a job for you? No. You want to put him in a position to get the best out of him. And if you're not thinking that way, then I don't know what you're doing in the job, because he is that good. He is one of your most talented players, period. You don't sacrifice your talented players to do a job for you. You build a team to get the best out of your most talented players. And I don't think Steve Bruce knows what to do with Miguel Almiron and his talent. And now he's, instead of coming out and saying, we have this very talented player, he's coming from a very different system, we're trying to figure out how to get the best out of him and also make the rest of the group work better. Instead of saying something like that, you're trying to say that, well, he's not good enough in this role. And that's an incredibly short-sighted way of looking at it. And I think all that's going to do is lead to Steve Bruce being gone very soon, because Newcastle's not going to get results with that type of leadership.
No. And it's just been a bad scene with Steve Bruce ever since he wandered in. And what is it, his 12th or 13th managerial position?
Something like that.
And yeah. And apparently he has told the players to stay at home because he's so angry with his squad currently.
Yeah, that's just poor management. I mean, there's just no way around it. So you have to take some of the comments about Miguel Almiron with that giant grain of salt, because there's a lot of issues with Newcastle, and the management and positioning of Miguel Almiron is just part of it.
Yep. Also on the board this morning, Bartimus Prime on the overreaction.
What's up, Bart?
That match summarized the frustrations with Atlanta United's season. A dominant performance results in drop points because the team can't take advantage of the possession and opportunities, then concedes a goal due to a dumb defensive error.
Yeah, the difference I would say is this one is a little more understandable without Joseph Martinez. But yes, I mean, you created chances. You had possession advantage, although not as pronounced as you've had in other matches. But you had control of the match, and you conceded control with an individual mistake. And it's going to cost you. It's just going to cost you. When you're missing Joseph Martinez, the margin for error is even smaller, and you just couldn't find a second, and you conceded in a spot that you shouldn't have conceded in. Should have been able to see that out at 1-0 at a minimum.
And let's see, who is next? I know that a couple of folks, I think it's Tofka and Katie Weaver have gone over the same topic. Chris Hutchison and Five Stripes fan both discussing PT. Chris says PT's passing yesterday was sublime. Now we need others to start putting those beauties in the back of the net.
Yeah, Pitty had some big moments yesterday, and Pitty is a fascinating player, and the reactions to him are just so interesting to watch. I love players like that. I love players that are capable of special things that you just don't see every day, and Pitty has all of that. He has a level of skill and technique that there just aren't many that do. But he's also a player that isn't easy to read, and he's a player that isn't easy for his teammates even to completely understand and completely see the same things that he's seeing. And I haven't seen a player with Atlanta United that has had more passes that are great passes, but teammates are not expecting them because they're just that good, and they're in from a position, or they're ending up into a position with the ability for him to place a ball that is unexpected. And it feels like the teammate makes a late jump, or is late to make the run, or just gets caught flat-footed. I've never seen that happen more than I've seen it with Pitty. He's special, and sometimes it just doesn't translate as fast as you would like. And I do get frustrated with some of the criticisms of him from a defensive standpoint, and we've talked about it plenty of times. I think they're unfair. He wasn't brought here to play defense. I think he gives you far more defensively than he gets credit for, but that's a bonus. That's a cherry on top. That's not the milkshake. The milkshake is his ability, and that's the important part of what he brings to the table. I think he's been very, very good over the last couple of months. And 5 goals on the year, 9 assists. That's a pretty good outlay. Now, is it South American Player of the Year outlay? No, he hasn't had enough moments that he did at River. A player like Pitti, for me, is about those moments. Like that chip yesterday. He converts that. That's a moment. That's a huge moment. And he had those at River. Whether it was a spectacular volley that finds the back of the net against Boca, or the goal from the Libertadores final that is just Pitti outrunning everyone as Boca was trying to find an equalizer and scoring a goal that sealed it. He had special moments, and he hasn't had many of those here. I hope he gets some before this year's done, because I think he deserves it, because I think he's been a better player than he's gotten credit for. Even more of a pronounced way than I thought Barco was kind of handled last year and treated. I think Barco was far better last year before the stuff that led to the suspension. As a player before that, I thought he was one of the best players in the squad, and he was not getting that type of respect, in my opinion. I think Pitti's in that boat. So I hope it changes for him, and I hope that some of those passes end up creating more goals. And I hope that he finds a couple more goals with some of his special play. I think he's been very good the last couple months.
All the great artists, they're wired a little differently. And I mean artist in the sense of writer, producer, director, painter, actor, all of them. They're wired a little differently. And sometimes it just takes a while to understand where that artist is coming from with their work, which they take a great deal of pride in. And all of the effort and all of the thought that goes into something that creates those moments of brilliance, creates that piece of art that hangs on a wall. You sit there and go, damn, that's a fantastic painting. So it takes a while to get adjusted to artists when you haven't seen them in whatever form you want to personify it in.
I will take it, before you go to the next one, I will take that to somebody like Prince. As an artist, as a musician, I don't know if you're going to find a more well-rounded one, and one who just saw things that weren't there.
Yeah.
But I think Prince's best work and most popular work and most loved work is the stuff that he did where he found out how to be himself and not hold back, but also be more collaborative. And his work with, the Revolution and the New Power Generation, where he was able to not be restrained, it's not the right word, but be able to bring others in.
Yeah. Bring others with you as a part of the whole presentation. You see that sometimes with artists, and they want to bring everyone else on stage, whether it's an actor or a musician or whatever. They want to bring everyone else on stage with them for this ride and bring out things that those folks may not have known that they've had until they collaborated.
Yeah, and it's tough. And I think Pitti is getting closer to that. And again, I'm hoping for some special moments from him in these big games coming up.
Five Stripes fan, the convo on Pitti missing the chip on the 2-on-1 sums up this year versus last. Just haven't been able to put games away when we could and should, like we did last year. Too many missed opportunities. It'll bite us in the playoffs.
It could. It definitely could. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like, I think back to Chips and Miguel Almiron in Game 1 against Red Bulls, went for the chip. Luis Robles made the save. Then later that year, he went for the chip against the LA Galaxy and converted it. I'd love to see Pitti get another opportunity in a playoff match and pull that off. And I hope it happens, but yeah, it does have a bit of that feel that, man, you look at some of the points that this team's dropped in games, that it's like, it's been a good year. I think any year that has an Open Cup to its name, and a Campeones Cup, which is a one game, yes, and it is a made-up trophy, yes, we know all that. It's like a Super Cup, and that's not the same, but it's still a good accomplishment. Any year that has those two things happen in it, coming off of a championship, is a good year. And that, I think, is a definite. Can it be a great year? That remains to be seen. And you need to convert some of these opportunities for it to truly become a great year.
Katie Weaver says it was great to see Kratz with the team. Did Carlton travel #passport? And then along the same lines of Katie and Tofka, Katie says also all the Poutine, Timbits, and Arcade Fire for broadcast award winners at Longshoe and at Mike Conti 929. Applause emoji, #Overreaction Monday.
Oh, thank you, Katie. Had the poutine. I don't think I'm going to get a chance to get any Timbits this time unless I get some at the airport or something. I will listen to some Arcade Fire on the flight back. I will go ahead and queue that up. I don't think Carlton traveled. I know he was suspended from the twos match on yellow card accumulation. So yes. He did not travel as far as I know. Kratz has been playing a good bit for the twos lately and looking pretty good. So with the suspension of Remedi, it made sense for Kratz to be with the group because that gave you an extra central midfielder in case you needed it, in case injuries, in case something happened. And he ultimately didn't need it, but it made sense for him for depth purposes. Carlton has been really good with the twos lately. I'm a little surprised that he didn't make the trip. But I think with Barco getting back in and you knew you were going to play him for 30, I think that was already set up, like he was going to play 30 minutes. I don't know if you needed another player of that ilk because I put Carlton into that positioning, that conversation with Barco, with Pitti. And I think Carlton has played his best with the twos in that kind of Pitti Martinez role as either a second forward in a 3-5-2 or in a very free attacking role where he has a lot of the same ideas. There's a lot of similarities. Is he as talented as Pitti? He's not as old. He doesn't have as much experience, and I think he's still figuring it out. Can he be? Maybe. I'm not going to rule that stuff out at this point. He's the maturity, yes, it's got to continue to come. But you look back at the last, 8 weeks with him with Atlanta United too. I think we're about at the 8-week mark where he has been really good and really consistently good and consistently creating chances and finding assists and scoring goals. Really strong. And I don't think he's had that since he turned professional on this long of a span of time where he's getting the games to do it and he's producing. This has been the best run he's ever had. And I think it's shown enough to where you start thinking about, well, what is 2020 for him? Is it the same and he's available if you have injuries with Barco and Pitti and he becomes the next man up and you keep the same identity with him filling in one of those roles? Or do you think, do we need to loan him elsewhere to play at a higher level than USL Championship? And that could be the case. I think he has shown more over these last couple months than I've seen. And I think he's starting to live up to the ability that we've known he's had, just hasn't shown it consistently.
Vine City's overreaction Monday is one of despair. NYCFC tanks it against Philly next week.
Yeah, they don't have anything to play for. And that's a little interesting on the Atlanta side because if Philly wins that at home, and they'll definitely be favored now, Atlanta has to win over the New England Revolution to finish second. Because if they don't finish second, then you're looking at playing either Toronto or Red Bulls or DC. And I believe there will be a lot of scoreboard watching as that goes on. And I'll be very curious to see how that reflects what happens in Atlanta and in Philadelphia. It's gonna be an interesting couple of hours on decision day. It's gonna be stressful.
Jorge B says, can we consider this season one of the best ever? I can't wait for decision day.
In MLS history, yeah, it should be. I mean, look at all the storylines you've got out of it. You get the LAFC season, that is one of the best ever individually. You get an Atlanta team that comes back off of an MLS Cup win and wins the Open Cup. and is going to be second or third in the East. You get an NYC team that finally, I think, lives up to what they've wanted to be from day one, and they win the East, and now they're going to the CONCACAF Champions League for the first time. LAFC going to CONCACAF for the first time. We'll see who wins MLS Cup and what that means. Right now, Philadelphia is in the driver's seat. If Atlanta, LA, New York City, or Toronto win MLS Cup, it's the next best record. And right now, that's Philadelphia. That would be their first CONCACAF Champions League. That's pretty cool. And you've had great individual seasons from Carlos Vela, from Zlatan Ibrahimovic. You've had the goal scoring streak with Joseph Martinez. It's felt bigger than any other season in MLS history. So if I'm the league, I'm pretty happy about 2019. And you want to see how 2020 can be even better.
Tafka says his magic number is 56, a draw. That'd put us as host for MLS Cup if LAFC falter and we advance. That's the most crucial thing to play for by far.
It's a good point. It's a very good point, because if LAFC get knocked out, then it is the highest seed that's left. And that would mean that if Philadelphia wins, then you've got to go to Philly and knock them off. And you've got to go to Yankee Stadium if they're in the Eastern Conference Final and knock them off. It's a tough road. I think you're looking for 3 here. And I think you need to play it for 3 rather than 1. I've always felt like, and maybe this is just me and my experiences with teams, I've always felt like it's harder to play for 1 than it is for 3.
Yeah.
Playing for 3 and settling for 1 is a much easier road than playing for 1 and maybe finding 3. I think when you play for 1, you end up oftentimes getting nothing because you're too tentative. You're in that in between of protecting and not protecting. I've never liked a team that's playing not to lose. I think this team, especially mindset wise, it's best to play for the win. And if you get to a point and it's 1-1 or it's scoreless or it's 2-2 and it's the 75th minute and there's not another goal in it for you, you just don't feel like it's coming, then you make a decision about playing for 1, but not to start.
Michael Ruiz says, so if LAFC loses or draws this weekend, what's the reception going to be of LAFC's season? I sense that a lot of national writers will still say they're the best team ever. I think if they don't break the points record, it'll be a disappointment.
I don't know if that's the case. I'm noticing in recent weeks that, okay, the usual narrative is already happening now. We'll read Matt Doyle's little description of Minnesota and LAFC from yesterday, talking about LAFC and how great of a year it's been. But he says, but any air of invincibility is long gone. Minnesota United were totally content to absorb LAFC's pressure when they had to, and then totally willing to send numbers forward when those moments presented themselves. The Loons were unlucky not to walk away with the full 3 points on Sunday. Against the 2nd through 4th seeds in the West, LAFC have walked away with all 3 points just once in 6 meetings this year. In April, when they beat Seattle 4-1. Since April, they're 0-2-3 combined against Seattle, LA, Galaxy, and Minnesota. Same type of thing we talked about with them last year. They didn't beat anybody, and they're not beating big teams on a regular basis. I do think the national narrative is doing what it always does. It's regressing to the mean. It was maybe over the top in how good LAFC was up to this point. Now it is, oh, well, they're overrated or whatever terminology we're going to go with. LAFC is a really good team. They're not the same team without Adama Diomande, and that's an issue. And you've got to figure out what you're going to do. Now, you have Brian Rodriguez, who's an incredible talent. Can you incorporate him and get the same things out of it? You've got to play Vela out wide. I think Vela as a number 9 is a mistake. And against Minnesota, it looks like they played him out wide. That's better. It's better for them to move Rossi into the middle or Rodriguez into the middle than Vela into the middle. You want Vela to be Vela, but you're not going to get the same things out of Rossi or anybody else, Rodriguez or anybody, that you get out of Diomande as the 9. So can you find something to make up for that? I think that's easier than playing Vela in the middle and sacrificing what he's been playing out wide and then also replacing him out wide. If they don't win it, do they get, hit a little bit? Yeah, they will. It'll be like the Red Bulls last year. The Red Bulls had the best regular season in league history. They did. It's there. And right now they still got it. They've got it by 2 points over LAFC. But they came up short in the postseason. It wasn't the first time. I think that'll be the narrative. If LAFC has the best regular season in league history, it's a great accomplishment. And the year they've had is unbelievable. The Carlos Vela season has been unbelievable. But in this league, you are measured by winning MLS Cup. And you have to do that in big moments and big games. And LAFC has been a club that in their 2 years has shown that they have not been as dominant in those big games. Can they do it this time? We'll have to wait and find out.
Also on the board from Kevin Laramie from Tafka. Kevin Laramie over at the Sports Podcasting Network apparently was present for a 20-minute roundtable from Howard Webb in Montreal.
Yeah, I missed it. It was in the stadium kind of early. So I saw a few things that came out from it, but what did Kevin say?
Just the possible idea of centralizing video review.
That's me clapping. I'm very happy about this.
So
this needs to happen.
Yes. Impossible to know where the centralized VOR would be located. Close proximity to MLS headquarters and Pro HQ ideal. New York City, a strong candidate for a centralized VOR location.
It would make sense. I mean, the only other place that would really make sense would be something in Fort Lauderdale in conjunction with Vista Productions, because everything feeds into there for the international feeds. But you can create that anywhere. That's easy to do, but get the facility done and do it, because it'll improve refereeing in this league if you do it. I think it'll improve the VAR process immensely if you do it. And I really hope that happens. So I'm very happy to hear that.
We talked a little bit about Katie's first half of her thought. She says, with the placement scenarios, does the Revs match really matter for Atlanta? The advantages to seed 2 versus 3 we've talked about.
It does. It does matter.
She says, is it more of a playoff prep game to rest? Who needs rest or work on shape and tactics?
I don't think it's a rest game, because you have 2 weeks. And that's the biggest difference this year. In previous years, it could be a rest game, because you'd be playing a playoff game either midweek, a few days later, or the following weekend. You're going to have 2 weeks. So it's not a rest game. You'll get your rest. It's a tricky game because of that, because you do need to work on things, but this might be a team that you see. So how much do you want to work on? I'm a little intrigued by that. New England's got a lot to play for. They need 3 points here. They don't want to come back to Mercedes-Benz in the postseason. That's not what they want to do in the first round of the playoffs. They don't want to be at the Benz. They would rather be at Audi Field. They would rather be at Red Bull Arena. They'd rather be going to Philadelphia. They don't want to come back to Atlanta. Atlanta, I think, would like to see New England out of the other possibilities. To do that, Atlanta needs to get the win, to guarantee it. Because if you look at the difference between a New England Revolution team and Toronto, it's a big difference in recent form. It's a huge difference in recent form. Toronto hasn't been unbelievable, but they're not losing games. And when you get to the postseason, when you look at what Toronto has done, they have not lost in league play since August 3rd. And absolutely true that 6 of those 9 have been draws. But what does a draw do in the postseason? You go to extra time. What happens if it's still level? You go to penalties. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. Now, New England, let's be fair, since the same date, August 3rd, New England's only lost 1 time. They've got 6 draws, 2 wins in that time frame. Both of them are going to be tricky in a playoff game. I think New England is a little less tricky. You look at the other current form from teams that are possible, depending on where you fall. Red Bulls would be another one. In that same time frame, since August 3rd, Red Bulls have won 3, lost 4, and tied 2. DC is another possibility, and since August 3rd, they have lost 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, and drawn 1. It's kind of funny that DC's in 4th right now with the worst form out of these 4 teams. The next worst form is the Red Bulls over the last couple months, and they're 5th. And then it's Toronto and New England, who are the tricky teams to beat, that are 6 and 7. They're just not getting wins. Not going to be easy with any of them, but I think New England's the easiest of the 4.
Yes. Tofk is full of tweets today, by his own admission.
All right, we'll get a couple more.
Yeah, we got a couple more
at some point.
Yeah, you got to check out here in a little bit. So we got a couple more here on the board, and we'll kind of rapid fire it, and I'll shave some stuff we've already talked about. Tofka, 1 spot's left for CONCACAF Champions League. What team is best suited to challenge Liga MX in CCL? It's not already qualified.
That's not already qualified. So that's taken Montreal, Atlanta, New York, and LA out of the picture. So what I say is best to play a Liga MX team that has it's really only down to a couple teams that have a legitimate shot. It's Philadelphia. Well, you could win MLS Cup, so yeah, you could have an underdog. So we'll go across the board. Philadelphia, I think they're very balanced. I think Minnesota's balanced. Seattle's been there and done that, but they haven't had the most success in CONCACAF. LA, it's so hard to read because is Zlatan back next year, or do they look different? The Galaxy, I think, could be positioned well. I think they have a manager in Guillermo Barros Escaloto who understands that type of play and the challenges with it. I've always thought Portland is a team that, Giovanni Savarese is an excellent manager, in my opinion. I think he has no problem doing what the game calls for, and he would have no problem going into the Estadio Azteca and being defensive and gritty and grinding out a result. But I think Portland, with the Diego Valeri situation, is going to look very different next year. So I would lean to the next 2 best teams in Philadelphia and Minnesota because I think they're the most balanced. They haven't been there, but Minnesota hosting Central American and Mexican teams, their home leg's going to be interesting early in the year, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia too, but Minnesota especially.
Oh, yeah. 5 Stripe Daily, short version here because we've talked about other things. What does PT need to do through the playoffs and next year to get overseas, or are we looking at having PT through his prime years?
I think you could be looking at PT through his prime years, but for him to get to a bigger club overseas, because I think he would need to go to a bigger club, and I'm specifically saying bigger club because there are clubs overseas that are not bigger than what he has here. To get to a bigger club, those special moments that we've talked about, those highlight reel moments, a little more consistency, maybe a little more production on the goal scoring side. And I think getting back into the Argentine national team is probably the biggest thing for him. If he gets back into the Argentine national team, that gives you a boost on your CV that just not many players in the world have. So that would be a lot to put him into a bigger club overseas potentially. And then it's just a matter of fit and need and the right manager. I think one thing that could factor into it is what happens with Marcelo Gallardo, his former manager at River Plate. Gallardo has won 2 Libertadores. He has struggled to win the league in Argentina, but winning the Libertadores has made up for it. I think he's getting to a point that it's how much more can he do at River, and does he want to go chase something else? I think he can get a job in Europe. I think he can get a good job in Europe. If he gets a job at a mid-tier to upper half Spanish club or French club, does he try to bring Pity Martinez with him? And that would be an interesting scenario that I could easily see happening.
All right, we got a couple more. Steve Dojnik, Dojnik. We've talked about LGP for bits and pieces of the show, but Steve just wants to know, is LGP worn down?
Could be. I mean, we've mentioned the number of games a lot. It could be. It could just be a matter of fatigue, and both physical and mental. And if that's the case, I don't know what else you can do, because we mentioned it from just the center back grouping. Escobar has struggled lately. Pogba has struggled lately. I don't think there's an easy solution. There's not an option to just put LGP on the bench. So you have to ride it out, and you just have to work with him to get the best out of what he has available right now. And if he doesn't have that sharpness, then all right, you got to play a little more conservatively. You've got to position yourself differently, and you've got to play a little differently because of that.
Two more and a comment before we go. Ricky Ricardo. I know the playoffs haven't occurred yet, but what do you think the legacy of 2019 Atlanta United will be, along with 2019 MLS as a whole?
2019
I think it's still being written.
Yeah, 2019 MLS as a whole, I think you can say that this is a year where the league has really grown up, and it feels bigger than it ever has. Not just size, but quality and attention and all those things. 2019 Atlanta is still to be written. If they win MLS Cup after the year that they've had, and winning, doing a double and some would say a treble with the Campeones Cup, very different conversation than if you get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. And I think all those things are on the table. If Atlanta, in my mind, Atlanta has had a good season. Atlanta has a season for the ages if you win MLS Cup. And if you get to an Eastern Conference final, I think it's a very good year. And it's hard to find much fault with it. I think it'll be a year that ultimately will be remembered fondly, but a year that if you don't win MLS Cup, there will be that nagging, they could have been even better. They weren't bad, they were good, but they could have been even better. It just didn't quite fall for them.
All right. Five Stripe fan, thoughts on Bello's positioning in the twos match, and he has the still of the lineup where Bello is listed as left and made in a 4-4-2. Didn't see it, so not sure how the formation really played out.
I didn't either, so I don't know. I don't know if it was truly a 4-4-2 with him playing up higher. He's capable of it. I don't know if it played more like a 3-5-2, so I'll have to go back and take a look at that. I'll check it for you and try to bring that one back for tomorrow if you think about it.
Okay, and then since we're caught up on Twitter, last thing before we go, congrats to you and Mike for being recognized at the Gabby Awards this past weekend for Best Play-by-Play.
Yeah, that was very, very cool. It's the first time I'd been at the Gabby Awards. It's the Georgia Broadcasters annual awards meeting, the 57th Gabby Awards this year. And the organization, the Georgia Broadcasters, started in the 30s. I think it's the 85th anniversary of the organization. To even just currently to be in the room with some of the best broadcasters, radio and TV and digital in the state was really cool on Saturday night. And to talk to people who are from outside the metro area, who listen to the games on radio and remembered things that I said on the radio and wanted to get into tactics about other teams. It was really cool. It was very cool to have those conversations with people that you would not expect to be that into it. We're really lucky to have the platform that we have with 92.9 The Game and the reach that we have with 92.9 The Game. And, for me to be still new at this and get a chance to work with somebody like Mike on a regular basis, calling games, it's made me better at what I do. To have the support of Sean Thompson and Terry Fox and Rick Caffey at Intercom and 92.9 The Game. And yesterday there's a conflict with the Falcons. We're on Star 94. Everything is as normal. to have that type of support to do what we do to the best of the ability that we can is pretty special. And everything that Atlanta United does for us to make it easier and to be able to do a good job and support us. I really took a lot last week reading about Marty Brennaman, who was the longtime play-by-play voice for the Cincinnati Reds. He was calling his last games as he decided to retire at the end of the year. And Marty said something that stuck with me. And I lived in Lexington, Kentucky for a while, and I've heard Marty Brennaman call baseball games as a kid. And he definitely fit in the same, I think, conversation of your Skip Careys and Pete Van Weerens and Larry Munsons and Steve Holmans and guys who try to be a representative for the fan base. And that's the idea that I've always had in my mind. And I think a lot of it comes from listening to all of those guys, my whole life in sports. We're there. We get to see it. We want to capture the emotion of it because I feel like that's the number one thing about a soccer match is you have to capture the emotion that you're seeing and feeling in it because that's the game. It's an emotional game. But Marty mentioned a player one time telling him, I think it was Ken Griffey Jr., coming up to him and saying, well, Marty's not a player. He doesn't understand what it's like out there. And Marty came back and said, no, I'm not trying to understand what it's like out there. I'm trying to be a voice for the fans, and I'm trying to help them understand what I'm seeing. And that kind of clicked with me because, we get into it on broadcast, and I feel like, Mike has been so willing to do it. We get into tactics a lot, and we get into the shape, and we get into things that I don't know a lot of American soccer broadcasts do. And it's really exciting to be able to do that. And hopefully, we're educational. Hopefully we're, analytical. Hopefully we're passionate. And I think it's obvious, where our loyalties lie. And I'm completely fine with that. I think we have our voices that capture what we want to capture. And I hope we can continue to do this and continue to get better at it and keep making these trips and keep calling these games because, yesterday I literally can tell you that the Villalba shot, I went down to a knee because I thought it was going in the back of the net. I think I knocked over a chair at one point as well. That's what
metal
happened.
Steel chair.
I didn't go through the metal steel chair. I did not pull a full Munson, but I did smack my arm back to move a chair and I knocked it over and it happens. That's what happens in the booth with us. And Mike's been amazing to work with, and I'm really lucky to get to do this for every match. And we've got a few more to do. So we will be heading back to Atlanta this afternoon. Be on the show tomorrow morning. We'll have soccer over there tomorrow evening. And then Sunday, Decision Day. Lots and lots to play for in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. It's been a wild year in MLS, and there's a lot of twists and turns still left. Thanks, y'all, for listening. Thanks for tweeting at us. Thanks for all the nice tweets and pictures and messages and everything from this weekend. I really, really appreciate it. It means a ton to me. We'll be back tomorrow. Mucho Palatio.
Mucho Palatio.